Good morning and welcome to the Alabama Works webinar series, a monthly webinar designed to provide information and speakers related to the workforce in Alabama. Past webinars are available on the Alabama Works website at alabamaworks.com. And now your host, Christy Knowles, Vice Chair of the Alabama Workforce Council.
Well, good morning and welcome to the Alabama Works webinar for February. We appreciate you joining us and think we have an excellent lineup of guest speakers here to talk about their role in meeting the needs of our diverse learners throughout the state. And we hope you're able to take this information and do something positive with it within your organization or even with you personally. We do have one small change in our lineup. We're going to actually start with Ms. Stacia Robinson, who is the new Director of Alabama Office of Minority Affairs, and she's here to talk about her vision for that office, for the Alabama Office of Minority Affairs. And then we're going to move to Ms. Jane Oates, who is our former Assistant Secretary for the U.S. Department of Labor and the President of Working Nation, as she'll provide information about the national labor market. And then we have Mr. Lawrence Cooper with the Alabama STEM Council, and he's here to discuss STEM Near Me, Dashboard, and Repository. And then we will get to Miss Emily Robertson, who is the Senior Account Executive for Wonder School, to talk about addressing child care access and their quality. And then we'll close out with Nick Moore to provide a labor market update for the state. So you'll actually have a national and state perspective on the labor market when this session is over with. And with that, I will turn it over to Miss Robinson.
Well, thank you so very much for this invitation to speak to you all this morning. Nick Moore and I are in the Rotary Club together here in Montgomery, and I'm thrilled to have accepted this opportunity to be the new director of the Alabama Office of Minority Affairs. He asked me to share my vision. This is my 6th week. I'm on skates and getting it going pretty quickly. What I envision for this on behalf of the governor is that on behalf of minorities and women here in the state of Alabama, we're responsible for economics, health, education, finance, and empowerment. One of the governor's biggest initiatives, of course, is that workforce be available for the workforce be ready to work here in the state of Alabama. What I see as a vision is that I will be partnering with each one of you to make sure that minorities and women are included as to be prepared and be ready to work in several categories. One of the categories that we're already working in this office is the HBCU category of colleges and universities here in Alabama. There are 8 historically Black colleges and universities here in Alabama. And in fact, Alabama has the largest amount of HBCUs in the country. So we have the 8 HBCUs, and we have 4, which are 4-year universities, and we have 4 community colleges that are historically Black colleges, community colleges. And what we're doing is ramping up the HBCU internship program. And that aligns very well with some of the efforts already being done with AIDT and the Office of Apprenticeship. The co-op program allows corporations to hire interns from HBCUs and give them an opportunity to actually work in their corporation while they're in school. So we're going to expand that greatly. I see that we will very much be on the move, trying to identify the colleges that are ready to identify students and corporations that are ready to have them intern with them. So I'm excited about that. And I would say that's one of the main initiatives that we're going to expand. This coming next few months, we're actually collaborating with the federal government on behalf of the White House HBCU Coalition. So they're coming to visit some of the colleges and universities here in the state as well on an HBCU tour. And so we'll be working with labor, everyone else, and trying to make sure that, again, minorities and women are prepared and included and given every chance to participate in work. Another aspect of that adds to the vision that I see out of this office is, particularly in the economic side, is entrepreneurship. And so we'll be working quite a bit to help start businesses and support businesses for minorities and women in Alabama, and make sure they have access to capital, have all kinds of opportunities as contractors to participate if any opportunities exist in business. And we'll be working with, again, corporations and companies to help support them if they're going to do any kind of mentoring of businesses as well. There's a lot of groundwork to be done in that category, and we'll be doing that. The other part of it is health. There's a lot of health disparities to address on behalf of minorities and women. And I'm looking for access to or representing all minorities, not just the one you think of course, minorities being mostly Black, but we have other minorities in the state to represent and make sure that they're included. So I will be speaking to the Hispanic Coalition, the Korean, there's several other ones to include and make sure that they're represented as well. So in a nutshell, we're again looking to just make sure that everybody is wanting to stay, be attracted to come live in Alabama and stay when they get here and have a quality of life that is available to all. So thanks for the opportunity, and I look forward to hearing the rest of you, as well as look forward to collaborating with all of you when I come calling, because I'll be doing that.
All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Robinson. We appreciate it. It was a pleasure meeting you and hearing what your vision is. I love some of the comments you said, especially the focus on small business and all those different categories. So really appreciate your time this morning and wish you well in that new role.
Thank you all very much.
Yes, ma'am. With that, I will turn it over to Ms. Jane Oates with Working Nation.
Thanks so much, Christy. Great being virtually back in Alabama. And I have to tell you, before I begin anything else, such a pleasure to be with you. But if I were talking to another state, I would bring up Alabama, because I think, the governor's plan of Success Plus is exactly where the national movement is. Everybody is realizing that every single person, in order to succeed in the workplace, has to have a credential after high school. High school's no longer enough. And Alabama is so well placed with 37 four-year colleges and 25 community colleges. And just as Ms. Robinson said, a rich history of HBCUs to make sure that everybody can get what they need. But beginning the labor market right now is there's a war for talent. I mean, the national labor market participation rate is lower than it's been in the last 20 years, 62.4% right now. Alabama has a really interesting statistic, and I'm sure Nick will get into this. 70% of your men are in the workforce, but only 58% of your women. So I think the real challenge for Alabama, like many other states, is to really figure out how do we motivate people to come back to the workforce. Ms. Robinson brought up several really great ideas. Many people can't afford to go back to school to get a credential and not work. They need to feed their family. So they end up with low-wage jobs or entry-level jobs and can't get any farther. But the things that Ms. Robinson brought up, the work-based learning ideas, whether it's a registered apprenticeship program, paid internships, or even opportunities with staffing agencies. Places all over the country are realizing that when people put working and learning and earning together, it really makes the most sense. Not only the most sense for the individual, but the most sense for the business. So as we're all looking for this talent, places all over the country are starting to really look at, yes, these work-based learning experiences for young people, college-age people, but they're really starting to look at this as a way to bring older workers back so they can earn while they're learning and get a good start with an employer. Now, with 11 million open jobs and only about 5.5 million people actively looking for work, employers really have to find ways to make their company look like the company to work for. And in Alabama, you have so many rich sectors. Obviously everyone thinks of fishing and agriculture, but you have such amazing manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, whether it's in auto, whether it's in aviation. But those manufacturing jobs, you've seen them, they are changing drastically. Now, not only do you need to have the critical vocational skills, the technical skills to do those jobs, and the employability skills, the things that we all hear about, but you also have to have digital skills. Around the country, people are trying to figure out, how do we teach these digital skills? How do we define them? How do we let people know that because they can order on Uber Eats, they're not digitally literate necessarily? So how do we make sure that every single person, as they're coming through a training program, as they're going to the job centers, how do we make them aware that learning to use an Excel spreadsheet is the door opener to data analytics? Every single company is looking at analytics in a different way. And certainly you can go to Auburn or Alabama and be a data scientist, but you can also go to one of your incredible community colleges and be a data technician. You can you can get that credential and get into a job where you can be on a pathway for your employer to pay for your bachelor's degree. I think that this idea of sourcing talent differently, paying people to learn on the job, we used to call it, OJT in the old days, and some of you may remember that. But we need to really incent doing this in more industries and more readily. I would also bring up to you that, we're at a point where we're always banging higher ed, always saying how they're not producing what business wants. I think that many states, including your neighbor, not far neighbor, Texas, has looked at integrated data systems in a way that gives the higher ed institutions real-time data on what programs are meeting the needs of employers, and quite frankly, what programs are falling short. And, as a recovering academic myself, the worst thing for colleges to do, the hardest thing, is to retire programs that are no longer producing the graduates that the workforce needs or the world needs. But that integrated data system really allows it to be driven by what's happening to your graduates, not on, oh, that's an old-fashioned program, or I didn't like that major, or whatever. So I think, with Governor Ivy has incredibly talented people on her staff, and Nick is certainly one of them. I expect Alabama to be one of the next states to be a leader in that integrated data so that you can make real-time decisions based on your employer needs. And finally, as we hear all this talk about removing the bachelor's degree requirement from many jobs, which I applaud. If I were, when I started speaking to you today, I said we have to find a way to motivate people to come back. If I were a 40-year-old woman who worked hard and then stopped out to raise my family, or stopped out to take care of a sick relative, and I saw a job description, even if it said bachelor's degree preferred, I might not apply for it. And yet I may have all the skills necessary to do that job. So I would ask each of you, as you're working with your employer partners, to help them examine job descriptions, job ads, where they have language that might not be encouraging, but might really be an obstacle for some of these folks to come back. I think that writing a job description is an art. And sometimes we just do it the same way we've always done it. We need to make sure that we're doing skills-based hiring. Therefore, our institutions can do competency-based learning, because if we marry competency-based education with skills-based hiring, we're going to have a real recipe for the future. I would leave you with two other words. I talked to you about digital fluency and digital literacy. I think the other emerging skill as we're looking on the horizon is cloud-based literacy. You know, we all talk about storing our data in the clouds. Our businesses are all doing business in the clouds, whether it's Google or Amazon. It doesn't matter who's providing the platform. The reality is, as more people use that technology, we are going to need more and more talented people in that area of cloud technology. If I were to say to you, what's the one thing that I think is lacking across all 50 states in our territories is real education in that area. Everybody says cloud, right? It was like big data a few years ago. And yet when you talk to people and say, well, that cloud technology, what are the jobs there and what are the job requirements? You get a blank stare. So I would challenge Alabama to really get out and be a leader on that. I mean, you have so many incredible employers in the state, so many of them already using this. I think it's time for you to get out there and really be a leader. I think you've been a leader in so much. You know, you're already, as Miss Robinson said, doing so much in work-based learning. You've done so much with embedding credentials and making stackable educational opportunities available for all. Get on the road with these new things, and I'll expect to hear things soon. Thanks so much. And please pay attention to Working Nation. We want to tell Alabama's stories as well. So reach out and tell us what you're doing that's really cutting edge, or what you're doing that may be old fashioned but is still working. Thanks so much for letting me join you this morning.
Thank you so much, Ms. Oates. We appreciate it. We appreciate the comments and we appreciate the kudos to the state of Alabama and appreciate the work you're doing. And one thing my takeaway was, we got to get, we can't trip ourselves up. We got to look at our job descriptions, right? We've asked for skill-based learning. It's accessible. It's sometimes quicker to get people into the workforce, but we got to take those job descriptions and make it match what we're producing. So I appreciate those comments. All right. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Cooper from the Alabama STEM Council.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Lawrence Cooper, and I serve as the program manager for the Alabama STEM Council. And I will be sharing some slides with everyone this morning. Let's see. All right, so with the just a little bit of information about the Alabama STEM Council itself. Actually formed in 2020 under executive order from Governor Ivey. And the purpose of the STEM Council is to provide and advise on STEM-related education, career awareness, and workforce development across the state of Alabama. The entire council is 49 members across 5 different sectors, all that kind of inform our STEM practices and policies in the state. So I'll have industry partners, K-12 and higher education is represented on the council, post-secondary training, informal STEM programming, and public officials and leaders are among those 49 that make up our council. And our council, kind of our operations team is led by our executive director, who is Dr. Lee Meadows. There is myself, Lawrence Cooper, as program manager, and then we have Renee McNeil, who is our STEM ecosystems coordinator. So, so our team of 3 kind of puts the legs behind the work of the STEM Council when it comes to providing programs across the state. So one of the programs that I help to manage here for the STEM Council is what is a program that we call STEM Near Me. So STEM Near Me is a free resource, it's a free directory that helps to connect Alabamians to opportunities of learning through different topics in STEM. So when we say STEM, that is science, technology, education, and mathematics. We also do include computer science in there as well. So this is a directory where people can connect with those types of opportunities, either in person near them, so STEM Near Me, or also online through virtual programming also. So our goal is to have anyone, any Alabamian participate in a STEM program to be able to find topics that they're interested in, especially those that might be serving their local community. And this is a free service, free for people to use the directory. It's also free for program providers to promote their activities. So as they, we call them learning opportunities. So any STEM program in Alabama can register themselves in the directory, and then they get to load their programs there. And that's how the user gets connected, is by being able to see kind of a broad menu of programs. And we see it as more than just a calendar. We see it as also a communication tool, so where we can find where our different STEM resources are in Alabama and connect our citizens to those resources. And part of that, what STEM Near Me also allows us to do, besides just that directory connection, it also allows us to see where some of our different STEM learning resources are in Alabama. So we can see, kind of based on location, where different things are happening and areas that might need more support when it comes to STEM learning opportunities in that K through 12 space and out of school learning. Also opportunities in workforce development around STEM across our states, and also make that connection between how STEM learning opportunities help to prepare a STEM literate workforce for the future. We know here in Alabama, in order to have that STEM literate workforce, we kind of have to build our own, and that early learning opportunities allow people to give exposure to STEM. Because of course, we have people who might say, I'm not a science person, or I'm not a math person. Well, there are opportunities that help people see themselves in those careers or in those opportunities. And that's one of the things we hope, that being able to support our local STEM programs also will help citizens see themselves as our STEM workforce of the future. So here, this should take us right to kind of what that directory looks like. That actually lives on our website. Let's see. All right, so here's our kind of that STEM Near Me page, and here's the directory itself. And our directory was actually designed to exchange with what is called Science Near Me. Science Near Me is a national directory, and it's actually started by funded and supported by the National Science Foundation. So National Science Foundation kind of has this broad net of opportunities all over the country. And our program, STEM Near Me, goes down to what is serving people here in Alabama. But it actually is an exchange. So our Alabama-based programs also get shared to that national directory. The national directory programs, if they serve Alabama, they become part of STEM Near Me as well. So we're actually the first organization to kind of have set up this exchange program with the Science Near Me as a way to promote what's happening in our state nationally as well. So in our browse available opportunities, that is just how people can search for what they're looking for. So all of ours are in Alabama, but I might say I'm in, let me see if I'm in Huntsville. And I want to find any available programmings in my area. So I'll put 50 miles. You can go ahead and set dates, search different types of topics. And then using the directory, it'll search through things that people have posted, and it'll pull up things that are near you that are available. Kind of some of our examples that come up here is Southern Research, which is headquartered here in Birmingham. They offer STEM field trips. McWayne Science Center with their Little Lab program. Stream Innovations, which actually offers after-school and community-based STEM programming. Dynamic Education, which is a traveling program that goes all around the state doing STEM programming. Also, Engineering is Elementary, which is a school and after-school based curriculum. So our tool and kind of our audience is those parents who might be looking for opportunities for their children to participate in. It also is a great tool for teachers as they're looking for different ways to enrich their classroom teaching. They might have an outreach program that's related that can come into their school. Different field trip opportunities across the state can also be here in the directory as well. So we see this as both a tool for a general audience, parents, grandparents, students out there, as well as teachers and administrators who are looking for those STEM-based programs. The program offerings are also not just limited to K-12. There's also what are called science cafes are here, where researchers and community are getting together. There are some youth service organizations that also post projects and things that are science-related in STEM Near Me. So it's a broad audience of people who can use this program to search for those topics that they are interested in. All right. So right now with STEM Near Me, we kind of had a soft launch of the platform in the fall and are beginning to push out more information here to our local partners. Right now, there are 30 local program partners. So when we say local, that means across the state here in Alabama that are currently posting all their different learning opportunities. Then we have 350 national partners. A lot of these are programs that are not based in Alabama, but might have an online component of how people in which people here in Alabama can participate. A lot of these are citizen science programs where they're asking citizens to just observe what's happening in their communities and their neighborhoods around different science topics, and what they're reporting back becomes part of these larger national projects. Some of our current organizations using the platform include our science centers here in Alabama, our nature centers, after-school programs, youth service organizations. Universities are actually using this as an outreach tool, as universities are planning programs to help serve their community. This is one place where they can go and promote what they're doing. So right now with our engagement with STEM Near Me, we have 797 visits to the directory itself. That includes 123 unique searches where people are going in and searching for particular items in their field of interest, and then 273 interactions or other ways that people are using the directory. So kind of, and what our hopes for our STEM Near Me and how that might connect back to your work is that you know a teacher, you might be a parent or know a parent, or be working with young people in some way so where you can help them find these opportunities. You might also be connected to a STEM program in your community that would like to be featured as part of the STEM Near Me website. So we see it as a way for you to help promote and advocate what's happening in your neighborhood, and also connect the people in your lives to some fantastic learning opportunities here in our state. So with the STEM Council, STEM Near Me is our large directory program, but we also have a few other things that are just kind of put in here for us to kind of glance at quickly. One is our STEM Teacher Externship Program. That is where we connect teachers, high school and community college teachers who teach any type of STEM discipline or career tech programs. During the summer, they spend time in STEM industry. It gives them a chance to see how STEM is used in industries all across the state. It helps them to identify those practices that they're teaching in the classroom and how they actually translate into the real world of work. And then those partners, those teacher and industry partners, work together to develop learning opportunities for those for their students. If you're interested either in hosting a teacher this summer or know someone who might be interested, there are some interest forms on our website, which is there. There's also a QR code on this slide that will also take you to the website as well. A few of our other programs to mention shortly, one is Scale Up, and Scale Up is an award for STEM programming. It actually, we take applications from STEM programs across the state, and then they can be awarded funding to help them expand their programs. The next round of this is happening this spring, with awards going out in May. Once again, visit our website if you know of a great program or institution who might be looking for funding to expand what they're offering. We have our Alabama STEM ecosystems, and that is coordinated by my coworker, Renee McNeil. We've just come through the design process for the Alabama STEM ecosystems, and we'll begin kind of helping develop those ecosystems across the state this year. Once again, visit our website, and there's a page there for more information about the ecosystems work. Also, a program we're very excited about is the You Teach program. We actually had funding through the legislature to fund this teaching model at 6 universities across the state. UAB had an existing You Teach model program. Now that program will be going to Alabama A&M, West Alabama, South Alabama, Athens State, Auburn University, and Auburn University at Montgomery. So this is a way for students who have a STEM major to take education courses and graduate with their STEM degree and also their teacher certification in their 4 years of college, which is really going towards ending our teacher shortage here in the state of Alabama. Once these programs are running, they'll be producing up to 250 new STEM teachers here for the state of Alabama every year. So we're very excited about having this program here in Alabama. All right. So thank you so much for your attention. I appreciate having the time to speak with everyone this morning. If you have questions about the STEM Near Me program or any other projects of the STEM Council, here's my information. Lawrence Cooper, lcooper@aidt.edu, and thank you for your time.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Cooper. That was very interesting. I love the format. I hope it's very successful this fall when you guys launch. And I appreciate everything you're doing, from getting K through 12 ready to producing teachers. That's awesome. So thank you so much. All right. And in keeping with the change that we've made with our agenda, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Robertson. She is the Senior Account Executive with Wonder School.
Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone also for allowing me the time to be here. It's exciting to present kind of what Wonder School's doing and share with you who we are and how we're hoping to help impact childcare across the nation, but specifically with Alabama. So this is kind of a passion for myself for a couple of different reasons. Childcare impacts me because I'm a single mom, so I have to figure out where to keep my 3-year-old and to keep him safe and happy and healthy and thriving while I'm at work. And then my little sister works in the childcare industry. And so I'm passionate about it for those two reasons, because it impacts her a lot with just the funding and financing that goes into childcare and helping people to have successful businesses and thrive. So real quickly, kind of the Wonder School story or background of how we came about to be. We began back in 2016. The gentleman that you see on the screen is Chris Bennett. He's our founder, and he is standing there chatting with Yuli. She's actually the family care provider that took care of him when he was a little child, and before school age interaction started happening. And he felt very strongly that the strong foundation he got in a quality care facility, this happened to be family care, which is what we specialize in, is what gave him the really good jump into moving into a successful educational career and then moving on. What does family childcare look like? It's in-home entrepreneurs starting a childcare with 7 children or fewer, just depending on the age that they're watching. Typically, they serve in rural areas where specific type of care or parental choice is needed. And our mission is to stabilize those existing providers and allow them to thrive as businesses. So this is just some quick company highlights. We have providers in over 43 states. We have over 36,000 providers using our Wonder School platform. And these are some key states that we have some amazing partnerships in. I will let you peruse those as I just tell you briefly about our Times 100. We were voted Times 100 most influential companies. And I'm sure that as you guys are going through the experiences you do in the workforce, you are experiencing a lot of struggles with people finding quality care and stable care. So you understand why a childcare company can become one of the most influential companies. So the challenges of childcare, there's not enough, and it's not always affordable, right? So outcomes for not having enough childcare, or we don't have all the parents in the workforce. We heard earlier from Stacy where she shared that women in particular aren't returning to the workforce or in the workforce. We know the pandemic removed a significant number of women from the workforce and they have not returned. Care becomes more expensive than the market can necessarily support. And then parents lack choice. They don't have an option. When I moved to the area that I currently live in, I had one option when I first moved here. Luckily, it's expanded a little bit since then, but it then locks you into, this is it. Like it or not, this is what you can do. And then the real problem is with childcare, or in the business of childcare, is helping these small businesses develop best business practices. So we train providers over multiple years to help implement those best business practices. They're excellent at the care of children and just need some support in those best business practices. So we have a multiple of tools that keep them going and support them to have a thriving business. So we're going to talk real quickly about the economic case for childcare in Alabama specifically. So right now, based on data that comes out of like childcaregap.org and some other organizations, you guys have about 85,000, a little over 85,000 kids that are 5 and under that have a need for a space in childcare, meaning the supply you have available is not meeting everything that you guys have. So this is estimated to be about a $3 to $4.6 billion economic impact on your guys' communities across Alabama. Now, this is over a 10-year period. And it's because non-traditional hours aren't being supported. It's actually because of a lot of reasons beyond this, but emergency workers, healthcare workers, manufacturers, agriculture that maybe need weekend or evening shifts don't have availability to them in traditional centers as easily as someone who might work a traditional 8 to 5 job. So some examples of what that might look like within your guys' community is, we're just going to take one community as an example. We're going to create 3 new childcare providers within that. What we've done now is created 3 new small businesses in your community that now can watch 21 children. That means 21 parents can return to work. This is an economic impact for that community of between $855,000 and some change to 1.2 million. This typically includes an increase when we're making this impact in a community of parental choice. They now have options of where to take their children. Emergency workers now have better options for childcare. Shift workers, regardless of where they work and what kind of shift they work, have more availability to choose from, or even just available. They may not have had a choice previously. The long-term impact annually is 2 to 4 times the annual salary lost each year out of the workforce, right? So we know that we're getting those people back into the workforce. And for every slot created, it creates a benefit of between $27,000 to $41,000. Again, all of this can be shared with you on childcaregap.org, americanprogress.org, and a few other sites that you'll see as we move on. So what does that mean? That for approximately a $90,000 investment, you can get between $855,000 to $1.2 million return on the economic impact for your community. And it's a one-time investment that allows your community to then have the freedom of the workforce to grow. So why family childcare? It's because it's about 20 to 40% less for families to select childcare. They are equal to, if not sometimes better than, large care facilities. You get continuity of care. The same teacher is working with your child. The kids get to interact across multiple age groups, which allows different growth and development for the kids, which is really exciting for families to see. It can be flexible to the needs of the community. If you have a large manufacturing facility coming into your community, those that we recruit to do this business can be recruited specifically for second shift or third shift, weekend shifts, things like that. Non-traditional hours help keep key industries running and supported, and keeping the staffing on those different shifts more easily to do. One-time investment creates independently running small businesses across the state. So how do we do that at Wonder School? Well, we have 3 buckets that we kind of function in. The first is creating the new supply of family childcare providers. We help develop access to quality care across your community. We stabilize existing programs that may be there and need the tools and providers and training to successfully manage their business operations. When we recruit a new business, we stay with them for the first 2 years that they're in business. So they have one-on-one support from us to allow them to talk through maybe some of their struggles, their marketing issues, whatever they may be going through to keep their business viable. And then we connect families with the care. So we have a wonderful platform that allows parents to search regardless of what their hours are. If you think about someone who might work second shift or be an emergency worker, it's hard to always have the time to go and look for care when that might be the time that you need to sleep to be prepared for your shift. Well, our platform allows for searching for care within the parameters of what you need for your child any time, day or night. And you can look for the specific parameters that are needed for you and your family, depending on your needs. And then all of this is tied together with data that gives you real-time reports that help you make the decision for, do we need to make some policy changes? Do we need to bring in new care in certain communities? Are we still lacking for infant care? Are we in need of toddler care? All of that gets fed back to the key stakeholders so that they can make the decisions that they need. We can also aggregate the data and show the health and strength of the businesses on our platform, so that is your community in a good standing with what is needed to supply the workforce with the care they need for their children, but also what you need for staffing. So where is this happening? This is one example of where it's going on. We have a partnership in Nevada, and when they initially started out, they had 85 family care providers. They're now up to 257 new providers. And in the duration of less than 12 months, we were able to increase them from that 86 to the 257. And now we're on to the target of 775 new childcare slots being created, but additional providers coming into the workforce. We're able to target in their worst childcare deserts and focus them in where their biggest needs are, and then check in regularly with them and report back with them what's going on. This is a secondary project, and the timeline of what we're doing: 171 new childcare providers recruited and trained. That's another 1,500 childcare slots created. The annual economic impact is 54 million to 83 million over a 10-year span. So, and then we have another 65 new providers registered to start in our next cohort that we're launching. So it's going really well. I wanted to use the term gangbusters, but that feels very less than professional, but it is going very well. So what does it look like when we're expanding access? Community outreach, environment planning and economy of scales, licensing, all the things that are required to run their business in your state, both professionally and properly licensed with all the requirements. We go through all those stages with them and then continue on throughout that. And then we talked about stabilizing programs. So that's across the board. We give them a marketplace where parents can easily find providers and providers can easily find parents, along with tools that allow them to check students in, track their billing, just kind of do all the business side, administrative side things very quickly, instead of more traditionally, what they are currently using is the kind of a little old school paper pencil. It's functional, but it doesn't streamline their business and allow them to move at a fast pace that business requires these days. And then the last piece that I had previously mentioned, but this just gives you a visual of, is being able to find quality of care. So this is an image from the Las Vegas area and what it looks like when parents go to find care. All the sites pop up so I can find by where I live, what I'm searching for. So this particular search was a specific region, and it shows all the programs within that 5-mile radius. I can search by program type. So if I have a specific need, like a child with special needs that I need a provider that can meet those needs, I could search by that, tour, and everything can be customized by state. Parents can even register and set up, a tour and things like that from that site at a time that works for the provider and the parent. And then this is an example of the reporting that we can bring back to the stakeholders that show how many accounts are created, what the average usage is, what enrollment looks like, how many kids are scheduled to come in that day. We can even break it down to the utilization of the software and things like that. So give lots of insight into what's going on in your communities across the state. And then just briefly to share some additional partnerships that we have. This is Indiana. We created the marketplace for them. You can see that they had a total claimed listings of 641 and sites that are live, meaning parents can find these providers by simply going to the same marketplace. So I could now, as a parent, find a provider that's close to work or close to my home, depending on what works for me and my family for pickup and drop off for my child. I can look at age preference. I can look at who has openings for multiple children. So if I had multiple kiddos and I wanted them all in the same location, regardless of the age, I could look for who had immediate openings. any of my needs that I need filled as a parent, I can then search for. So that's Indiana, and this is Michigan. Our partnership there, we've provided provider toolkits, which helps them optimize their business, new program creation. They wanted 75 new programs, and we already have 50 individuals in training. The reason that this is pretty phenomenal is we just kickstarted in January. So things are moving incredibly quickly there, and we're really going to make an impact on their childcare needs very quickly. So I just wanted to share just high level who we are, what we do, and how we could impact the childcare needs that Alabama currently has. There is my contact information. I also included my coworker Yolanda's there as well. You can reach out to us for any questions that you may have. And we're happy to share information with you. And thank you so much for your time.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate that. And I will say, the lack of childcare or the unreliability of childcare for some of our staff is a huge issue. And I'm in healthcare, and I appreciate the untraditional hours, but it's really even day shift is highly impacted by daycare as well. And so it's a daily challenge. I don't know how many people we lose as far as recruitment, but I know how many people we lose from a retention perspective from lack of childcare. So appreciate your work very much so. All right. I think Mr. Nick Moore has joined us, and he's going to give us an update on some state labor statistics.
Well, thank you, Ms. Knowles. It's a pleasure to join you this morning. I'll just take us through quickly our latest labor market data. And this is a bit dated because we're in one of those months to where next week we'll get the data from January, but that's just not quite out yet. And so what we've got here is the December 2022 data, but this is still, again, what's most current. And so our unemployment rate is 2.8%. That's a little bit higher than our historically low unemployment rate of 2.6, but it is still below where we were at the beginning of the pandemic. And for the labor force participation rate, we're at 57%. That continues to vacillate from month to month. But just keep in mind that if we can move our labor force participation rate 1 percentage point, that's roughly 50,000 Alabamians. So we have to continue as a state to be more concerned about our labor force participation rate as a workforce strategy, because the 43% of Alabamians that are not participating, not all of those are what we would call shadow labor force, or people that want a job but can't get one, but very many of them are for reasons like were mentioned by Emily in regard to childcare. So we have to get more of that 43% to go from just non-participators to people that are in the shadow labor force, so that we can help connect them with training and employment supportive services to help them get in the labor force and persist. And so what this graph from the St. Louis Fed shows, and anybody who is not familiar with this website, if you go to St. Louis Fed and you can look at all range of statistics on the labor market, including for the state of Alabama, but this just shows how we have shifted our labor force participation rate over the last year. And you can see that we started going up, and then around in the fall, we started tracking down a little bit. Now, as you can see from this graph, next month it could pop right back up, and but over the last 5 years, we have hovered around this 57 percentage point labor force participation rate. And the unemployment rate went down, like I said, to our historic low, and we've ticked up just 0.2 of a point, and but that remains to be very low and certainly below the national unemployment rate. Now, big thing I want to share with you today is people. We did our fourth iteration with our work with Signal on the governor survey of the unemployed and underemployed, to try to get better insights for people that are not in the labor force or just marginally attached to the labor force on what is keeping them from fully participating. And expense is a primary obstacle right now for training, although people are a little bit more aware of the opportunities than during the pandemic. And so on each of these slides I'm going to share, you can look and see how these surveys, similar questions over time have shifted from September 2020 to January 2023. But unemployed and underemployed folks of all income levels are citing expense as an obstacle to additional training. And so that may be the reason why just 20% of workers that are unemployed or underemployed have completed training while they've been unemployed and underemployed during the pandemic. And additional education and training during unemployment has decreased from a pandemic high of 45%. So during the height of COVID, we saw a lot more people entering into training, and that's beginning to level off some. So that's even more reason why we've got to double down to make sure that, for example, our Alabama Workforce Stabilization Program and a lot of the other programs that the community college system and Commerce and other partners have developed, that we continue to spread awareness about those programs so that people understand that there are short-term programs that lead to employment and credentials that can be cashed in for a longer-term degree that are available at very low cost. So we do have those programs, but the awareness is obviously not there based on these results. And so it continues to be the case that short-term non-degree credentials are the most sought after for those that are unemployed and underemployed. And there's a lot of interest in skills coursework. So we've got to, again, double down on making the connection between getting people some short-term training with a credential that can articulate towards a longer-term degree. And we are working on those programs. And so it's incumbent on every partner at the state level, but also for us to begin sharing awareness with incumbent workers and employers so that everybody is aware of the training that we do have available. And some good news is that 3/4 of workers surveyed are very likely to seek reentry into the workforce in 2023. And this is the highest it's ever been since we've been conducting this survey. Went from around mid 50s in the past and now up to 73%. So we have to take advantage of this opportunity for people who are really acutely seeking employment and training, who feel like there's some barrier around cost to make the connection. And I would say one of the most interesting things that came out of this survey is that transportation is now the primary reason for unemployment and underemployment. And we have seen this grow over a period of time. And but also other things like family responsibility. So that brings into case childcare, and the fact that people feel like full-time work is unavailable or hard to find. And so that's another thing where we know there's 2 jobs available for every person who's unemployed, but sometimes people may not just have the information that's needed. So that's why we're, for example, doing the work around the talent triad to make a digital resume and skills-based job descriptions more available and prevalent. And so we'll be launching our pilot on that in healthcare and manufacturing next month. But we still have a lot of work to grow awareness around that project and other things we're doing. And we just have to be honest about that we can't just develop programs. We've got to make sure that we've got people out there with the knowledge of what we're trying to do. And so COVID as a barrier to work has been replaced by lack of transportation, personal health concerns, and family obligations. Well, and so I will turn it back to you, Ms. Knowles, and again, appreciate the opportunity to join you today.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Moore. We appreciate that. Number one, let me say how glad I was to see 73%, right? 73% want to get back into the workforce this year. So that's an incredible number. It's a huge jump. And that is awesome. When the statistic about education or gaining the skills being expensive, you wonder if there's some correlation to what Ms. Oates was talking about and how we post jobs and the education we ask for and the expectation that they think is out there, what they've got to reach versus what they really do have to achieve to take some of these jobs and be able to do very well with them. So another reason we need to look at those job descriptions, look at the expectations that we put on those and make sure they're in line with what someone really needs, that we're not setting an unrealistic bar that's really not even necessary for some of that.
Now, I think that's a great point. And there certainly is, a paper ceiling. And a lot of times we've got requirements and job descriptions but we also, I think Alabama is in a good position because we've built a system for skills-based hiring and competency-based learning that now we can implement through the talent triad. So whereas some other groups have begun by just eliminating those requirements, and then maybe see, it's kind of hard just to do that without that system. So now that we've got this system in place, I'm hopeful that we will then be able to go and start taking a look at what are the right level of degree requirements and jobs, and then what are the ones that may be a barrier, because we do know that a bachelor's degree over a lifetime will provide the best labor market value. And we want to make sure that requirements for those are reserved for those jobs that provide that bachelor's level type of a pay return. And so that is, I think, another key point that we're trying to do in Alabama is to show that these are not mutually exclusive pathways. We're not trying to track people into short-term non-degree credentials and say bachelor's degrees are reserved over here, but we're opening up new modalities for people to get into post-secondary learning, because 90% of the jobs that we're putting in to the state of Alabama require a credential of some type. Now, not all of them are a bachelor's degree. A lot of them are non-degree credentials. But if we want people to have the best mobility in their career pathway, we've got to give people an option to begin with those credentials, stack those up to an associate degree, a bachelor's degree, go as far as they want. But in a lot of the literature and a lot of the conversation nationally, it seems like there's a group of people that thinks, well, all non-degree credentials are great. They put, and we got to make sure there's quality, because they're not all great. There's some that are wooden nickels, and we don't want those. And then there's another group of people that says, well, this is totally wrong. We can't have everything's got to be bachelor. And we've got to be able to show how we can marry those two things together. We can walk and chew bubble gum and say there is a right place for all of these within the spectrum of learning. And it's really about making all learning count and giving people the data and the resources to make the right decisions for them and their families.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And, and for so many employers, if they get in with a credential, you talked about those career and credentialing pathways, the employer will pay for that once they get into an employer. So I know we do. So it's, it's a win-win when they get in there. So, all right.
Yes, ma'am. That's a great point. We've seen that in some of our previous survey work on non-degree credentials, that employers are paying for a lot more of skilled training programs, and that continue to trend up.
We got to build and grow our own. That's what we know. That's what we know. All right. Well, I'm going to end with 73% want to get back into the workforce this year. That was a great statistic. And with that, I believe our program for today is concluded, but I hope you will join us next month on March 13th for the March Alabama Works webinar. Thank you. Have a great